The market of Shambhala buzzed beneath the crimson dawn. Traders shouted, coins clinked amidst it all. Rajan smiled, but his smile hid a hunger deeper than gold. A rumor had reached his ears. An old monk atop the mountain possessed a stone that could turn a handful of dust into treasure. What happens when a lie becomes the only truth you live in? He whispered to himself, tasting the idea like sweet poison. He told the merchants he sought enlightenment, but his eyes glimmered with calculation. As a gentle villager named Mira offered him tea, his mind spun a plan to deceive the monk. Two paths stood before him, honesty or greed. And as the wind howled over the mountains, the world seemed to whisper a warning. Is wealth worth losing your soul or your peace? Rajan ignored it. His journey to outsmart wisdom had begun. The mountain road twisted like a serpent, each bend whispering doubt. Rajan's horse snorted in the thin air, its breath turning to mist. The silence made his lies sound louder in his head. He rehearsed them. How he'd tell the monk he sought peace, how he'd pretend to renounce wealth, how his false humility would earn trust. But each word felt heavier than gold. The wind carried the faint sound of temple bells from above, haunting, patient, eternal. He told himself this was a game, yet something inside him began to tremble. Still, he smiled at the thought of power. Every step higher took him closer to the prize, and further from truth. At a resting point halfway up, Rajan found an old man sitting by the roadside, prayer beads slipping slowly through his fingers. It was Elder Dorsch, his white beard streaked with silver dust, eyes sharp beneath calm brows. You seek the monk? He asked softly. Rajan nodded, spinning lies about faith and penance. Dorsch's gaze lingered, too long, too knowing. Be careful what you seek, he said, for wisdom doesn't trade in gold. Rajan laughed lightly, masking unease. The elder's words followed him like footsteps in fog. He didn't yet realize. The mountain listens. As daylight faded, Rajan reached a small village nestled in the mountain folds. Mira appeared again, tending to goats near her hut. You again, she smiled. He returned the smile, but his mind still chased gold. She offered him a meal and shelter. Inside her humble home, he noticed a small clay idol of the monk on a shelf, glowing softly in candlelight. He saved our village, she whispered. Rajan stared at the idol. The face peaceful, eyes closed, carved from stone that looked almost alive. He thought of power, not peace. That night, he slept with greed curled beside him, like a serpent. Before dawn, Rajan rose quietly. Mira still slept. The mountain above loomed like judgment itself. He looked once at her peaceful face and turned away. Lies don't rest long near innocence. As he began his climb, the forest grew darker, quieter, as if the world held its breath. Somewhere far above, the first temple bell rang. It sounded like a heart calling out truth. Rajan ignored it, tightening his grip on the reins. In the silence between each step, he could almost hear his own deception whispering back to him, "Keep going." The monastery gates rose like stone giants, half shrouded in fog. Rajan dismounted, brushing the dust from his silk robe. His heart pounded, not from awe, but anticipation. A monk opened the wooden door, his face calm as still water. "Traveler, what brings you here?" the monk asked. Rajan bowed deeply, voice soft and false. "I seek peace," he said. His lips smiled, his eyes betrayed him. The air smelled of incense and rain. Behind the monk, bells chimed gently, echoing through vast courtyards. As he stepped inside, Rajan felt the mountain's silence swallow his words whole. Lies, it seemed, weighed heavier in sacred air. The monastery courtyard was a sea of silence broken only by the wind in prayer flags. Rajan followed the monk through stone corridors lined with butter lamps. Every step seemed to echo too loudly. At the end of the hall, under a bodhi tree, sat Monk Tenzin. His eyes were closed, his expression neither welcoming nor dismissive. Rajan hesitated, then knelt. The old monk opened his eyes slowly, calm, unreadable. "The heart of truth has no need to pretend," Tenzin said. Rajan forced a grin. "Then I have come to learn truth." But as he spoke, even he could hear the hollow ring of his word. As the day passed, Rajan observed the monks at their tasks. Sweeping, meditating, chanting. There was no gold, no trade, no desire. It unsettled him. That night, he was given a simple room with straw bedding. He stared at the empty walls, wondering where the fabled stone was kept. When a bell rang for evening prayers, he peeked into the main hall. There, before the altar, he glimpsed a small, glowing stone resting on a bronze plate. His pulse quickened. So the rumor was true. He whispered to himself, "Soon, I'll be richer than kings." The shadows seemed to shiver at his words. Later that night, Rajan found monk Tenzin sitting alone, gazing at the stars from the temple balcony. "You seem restless," Tenzin said without looking at him. Rajan smiled faintly. "I was only admiring the beauty of this place." The monk turned, eyes soft yet piercing. "Beauty tests the heart. What you admire, you desire." Rajan felt exposed, as though the monk could see every lie coiled inside him. "Tell me," Tenzin continued, "if peace and gold were placed before you, which would you take?" Rajan forced a laugh. "Peace, of course." The monk only nodded, as if he had already heard the truth Rajan dared not speak. At dawn, Rajan joined the monks for morning prayers. The chants rose like wind across stone, deep and steady. He tried to mimic them, but his thoughts wandered to the glowing stone. After prayers, Tenzin approached him. "Today you may help in the garden," he said. Rajan agreed, hiding impatience. As he dug into the soil beside the old monk, he noticed Tenzin planting seeds with careful hands. "Every seed," the monk said quietly, "contains the world it deserves." Rajan didn't understand. He smiled, nodding. But somewhere deep down, a seed of fear had begun to grow. Days passed in silence and service. Rajan's hands, once used to counting coins, now shoveled dirt and carried water. Yet, his eyes never left the altar hall. Monk Tenzin observed him without comment. One morning, Tenzin called him to sit beneath the Bodhi tree. "Tell me, Rajan," he said, "what do you think is the weight of a lie?" Rajan hesitated, masking discomfort with charm. "A lie weighs nothing, master. Unless someone believes it." The monk smiled faintly. "Then perhaps belief is the heaviest thing of all." The word struck deeper than Rajan admitted, but instead of reflection, his mind twisted them into strategy. Maybe the monk's belief could be turned against him. That evening, Tenzin handed Rajan a wooden bowl filled with rice. "Eat it," he said, "and remember, the world feeds the honest heart first." Rajan smiled politely, but as the monk turned away, he noticed another bowl on the table, larger, filled with steaming vegetables and fruit. Hunger and greed stirred within him. He exchanged the bowls swiftly and ate the monk's meal, justifying it as harmless. Later, when Tenzin returned, he simply glanced at the empty bowl and said, "Strange how some hunger never fills." Rajan froze, uncertain whether he had been caught or tested. The food turned to ash in his mouth. The next morning, Tenzin asked Rajan to fetch water from the sacred spring behind the monastery. As Rajan approached, he saw a reflection in the water. His own face, but older, hollow-eyed, with gold coins spilling from his mouth instead of words. He stumbled back in fear. When he returned, pale and shaken, the monk asked nothing. Only when Rajan tried to speak did Tenzin say softly, "Sometimes the mountain shows us what we hide." Rajan forced a laugh, pretending not to care. But that night, he dreamt of drowning in gold, his own voice echoing, "You can't buy peace." By now, Rajan's patience wore thin. That night he crept toward the temple hall, determined to steal the glowing stone. Every step echoed like thunder in the still air. He lifted the bronze plate slowly, but beneath it, there was no stone, only a small note. It read, "Greed reveals itself even in darkness." A cold shiver ran through him. From behind, a soft voice said, "Did you think you could trick truth with silence?" Tenzin stood in the doorway, calm and unafraid. Rajan stammered excuses, but the monk only turned away, whispering, "Some thieves steal nothing but their own peace." At dawn, Rajan packed his bag in silence. He told himself he would leave, find another way, another treasure. Yet as he stepped outside, he found Tenzin waiting by the monastery gate. The monk handed him a small pouch. "If gold is what you seek, take this," he said. Rajan's heart leapt as he opened it. Inside were mere pebbles. His anger flared. "Is this your joke?" Tenzin's eyes remained calm. "No, it's your reflection." Rajan clenched his fists, the pouch trembling in his hand. The mountain wind howled through the valley, carrying away his pride like dust. He didn't yet realize. The lesson had only begun. Rajan descended partway down the mountain, but peace never followed. Each coin he once cherished now felt like a stone pressing against his chest. That night, as rain poured over the valley, he took shelter beneath a rock ledge. When he opened the pouch again, one pebble gleamed faintly, like gold in the stormlight. His heart raced. "It was real after all," he whispered. "The monk tried to fool me." He didn't see the reflection of lightning flashing across the wet stone, only his own greed mirrored back. In that moment, a new lie was born. This time, one he told himself. Driven by obsession, Rajan climbed back toward the monastery under the cover of night. His boots slipped on wet stone, but his eyes never left the faint glow of the temple above. He told himself he only wanted to confront Tenzin, to demand the truth. But deep within, he already imagined stealing what he couldn't earn. When he reached the courtyard, he found the monks asleep, prayer lamps flickering softly in the rain's hush. His hands shook as he crept inside, whispering, "This time I'll win." Yet every echo of his steps seemed to say, "You already lost." Inside the main hall, the glowing stone was once again on the altar. Rajan approached it slowly, hands trembling. The silence felt alive, as if watching him. "Mine," he whispered, reaching out. The moment his fingers touched it, a blinding light burst through the hall. He stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the light faded, the stone lay dull and lifeless in his palm. Behind him, Tenzin's voice echoed, calm and unwavering. "When gold blinds the eyes, even light becomes darkness." Rajan turned. The monk stood in shadow, eyes sorrowful, not angry. The weight of shame pressed heavier than the stone itself. Weight of shame. Rajan dropped the stone and fell to his knees. "You lied to me," he shouted. Tenzin stepped closer, his tone gentle yet firm. "No, you lied to yourself. You believed greed could outsmart truth." Rajan's voice broke. "Then why show me the stone? Why test me?" The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because truth cannot be taught, only revealed." The hall fell silent, except for the soft drip of rain from the roof. Rajan's defiance cracked. Tears mixed with the dust on his face. He had come seeking power, and found instead a mirror too honest to bear. At dawn, Rajan sat outside the temple, silent and hollow. The mountain breeze was cold but strangely gentle. Tenzin joined him, holding 2 cups of tea. "Peace is not given," the monk said, handing him one. "It's allowed to enter?" Rajan's hands shook as he accepted it. For the first time, his eyes held no scheme, only confusion, the kind that comes before understanding. As sunlight spilled across the peaks, the gold he once craved seemed meaningless compared to the calm in the monk's smile. Yet deep within, A spark of pride still lingered, one last ember waiting to burn him again. Days turned into weeks. Rajan stayed at the monastery, working alongside the monks. He learned silence, patience, and simplicity, yet deep inside, the seed of greed had not died. It merely slept. One afternoon, while cleaning the prayer hall, he overheard two monks whisper about a hidden chamber beneath the altar, a place only Tenzin entered. The words ignited the ember once more. So the true treasure lies there, Rajan thought. His pulse quickened. He smiled politely as the monks walked away, but his mind began weaving deceit again. Soft, careful, dangerous. The mountain had given him peace, and now he prepared to betray it. That night, Rajan waited until the temple slept. The moon hung low, pale and hollow. He crept toward the altar, lifting each step with the care of a thief reborn. Behind the altar, he found a small stone door carved with sacred symbols. His fingers trembled as he pushed it open. Inside was no gold, only shelves filled with scriptures and an ancient mirror framed in bronze. His reflection stared back, tired, thinner, yet still hungry. Then, faintly, the reflection spoke. "You never came for truth." Rajan gasped, stepping back, heart hammering. The mirror's surface rippled like water. He had found not treasure, but his own corruption. The next morning, Tenzin called Rajan to the courtyard. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. Rajan nodded, forcing composure. "Yes, master." The monk studied him in silence. "The mountain watches those who look for gold in its heart," he said softly. Rajan froze. He hadn't told anyone about the chamber. "What do you mean?" he stammered. Tenzin's eyes held both kindness and sorrow. "You came seeking treasure, but every time you dig, you bury yourself deeper." The words sliced cleanly through Rajan's defenses. He lowered his gaze, unable to answer. For the first time, shame began to feel heavier than desire. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Rajan sat by the same spring where he once saw his reflection spill coins. This time, the water was still. He gazed into it, searching for the man he used to be, the clever trader, the ambitious dreamer. But the face that stared back was tired, hollow, and human. For a long time, he said nothing. Then softly he whispered, maybe truth was the only treasure. Behind him, the wind carried the faint sound of Tenzin's voice chanting prayers, steady, eternal. Rajan closed his eyes, unsure if the sound came from the temple or his own heart. But peace was not kind to Rajan's restless soul. That night, temptation returned one last time, cruel and cunning. He dreamt of the glowing stone, now brighter than ever, calling his name. "Take me," it whispered, "and rule the world below." He awoke in sweat, eyes burning. The monk's words faded from memory. Greed had returned to claim its throne. Without hesitation, he packed his things and fled the monastery before dawn. The mountain was silent, the path cold. Somewhere behind him, the morning bell rang. One clear note, echoing through the valley, like truth bidding farewell to a man who refused to listen. Rajan descended into the valley, the world below unchanged. Merchants shouting, coins clinking, greed pulsing like the very heartbeat of life. Yet he felt apart, like a ghost among the living. He spread tales of the monk's magic stone, but no one believed him. Desperate to prove its existence, he opened the pouch Tenzin had given him before. The pebbles inside glimmered faintly, just enough to rekindle his madness. "I'll sell these," he said, "and they'll see who's a fool." But as he poured them into a merchant's hand, the glow vanished. The crowd laughed. His face burned with humiliation. Greed had turned him into the very thing he despised. A liar no one believed. Humiliated, Rajan wandered through the village until he reached Mira's hut. She greeted him with a soft smile that felt like sunlight through clouds. "You've returned," she said kindly. "Did you find peace?" He forced a grin, hiding the storm inside. "Something like that." She offered him food, and as he ate, her gentle silence pressed on him harder than any lecture. "The monk must be wise," she said, "for you look older now." Rajan glanced into her simple eyes and saw no judgment, only truth. For the first time, he couldn't lie. "I tried to outsmart him," he confessed. "And did you?" she asked. Rajan looked away. "No, he outsmarted what was inside me." That night, Mira spoke of the monk's teachings, how truth cannot be hidden and greed cannot be fed without consuming its master. Rajan listened in silence, the words stirring something fragile in him. He thought of Tenzin's calm gaze, the weight of his own lies, the stone that had never glowed for him again. For a long moment, he considered returning to the mountain, begging forgiveness. But pride still whispered, faint and poisonous, "You can still win." He stared into the fire, watching it twist and dance, realizing that greed burns the same way. Beautiful at first, then hungry for everything. In the early morning, Rajan packed his bag once more. Mira woke to see him standing at the doorway. "You're leaving?" she asked softly. "I have to," he said. "I can't live with half-truths." She nodded sadly. "Then don't chase gold. Chase peace." Her words clung to him like the morning mist as he climbed back toward the mountain. Each step felt heavier. Not from greed this time, but from the weight of his own conscience. Above him, the monastery stood silent, waiting, not as a temple, but as a mirror to his soul. By midday, Rajan reached the temple once more. Tenzin awaited him, standing under the Bodhi tree, as though he had never moved. "I thought you'd come," the monk said. Rajan knelt, tears blurring his vision. "I wanted to own wisdom," he whispered. "But I only owned my greed." Tenzin smiled faintly. "Then you've learned the price of wanting what cannot be sold." Rajan bowed his head, and for the first time the mountain seemed to breathe with him. The air was still, yet alive, the kind of silence that heals. The traitor, who once came to deceive, finally learned that truth is the only treasure that multiplies when shared. Weeks passed in calm repetition. Rajan remained at the monastery, not as a trader or a guest, but as a student. He swept the same floors he once crept across, carried water without complaint, and watched the sun rise each morning in silence. The greed that once burned like fire had cooled into quiet ashes. One dawn, Tenzin approached and said, "Now your hands are clean enough to hold truth." Rajan smiled faintly, unsure if he deserved the words. "Then what is truth, master?" he asked. The monk looked toward the horizon and replied, "Truth is what stays when everything you chase fades away." The words sank deep, soft but unshakable. Later that day, Tenzin led Rajan to the garden where they had first planted seeds together. The small plants had grown, their leaves stretching toward the light. "Every seed," Tenzin said softly, "becomes what it was meant to be. No faster, no slower." Rajan knelt beside the plants, touching the soil that once stained his greedy hands. "Then, what was I meant to be?" he asked. The monk smiled. "You were meant to fall so that truth could rise." Rajan felt a quiet warmth in his chest. Not pride, but peace. For the first time, the sound of the wind felt like forgiveness. That evening, Rajan walked to the edge of the cliff, overlooking the valley. The same path where he once dreamt of riches now lay silent beneath him. He reached into his pouch, still carrying the pebbles, and smiled. "You were never gold," he whispered, "but you made me richer." He tossed them into the wind, watching them scatter like stars across the air before vanishing into the mist. Behind him, the temple bells rang again, steady and clear. For the first time, Rajan didn't feel small before the mountain. He felt part of it. Its truth, its patience, its peace. When Rajan returned, he found Tenzin waiting with a faint smile. You let them go? The monk asked. Rajan nodded. I let myself go with them. Tenzin's eyes gleamed. Then you have finally traded well. They sat together in silence, watching clouds drift across the peaks. The monk's presence felt lighter, almost fading into the mist. Will you stay? Rajan asked. For now, Tenzin said softly. But wisdom travels faster than footsteps. Rajan understood. The monk's lessons were not meant to be kept in stone walls. They were to be lived, carried down into the world below. At dawn, Rajan left the monastery for the final time. He carried no gold, no stone, no treasure, only the silence the monk had taught him. As he descended, the valley below seemed brighter than ever before. When he reached the market he once ruled, he didn't trade words or goods. Instead, he helped a child lift a fallen crate and smiled. The same smile that once deceived now comforted. In that quiet act, the circle closed. The trader who once sought to outsmart wisdom had become its student. The mountain, distant and eternal, watched in silence, its lesson complete.